If you could change just one thing today that would alter the course of your entire life, it wouldn't be your job, your location, or even your habits. It would be your mindset. There's a quiet revolution that begins in the privacy of one's own mind. It does not start with noise, applause, or recognition. It begins with a thought, a single, small decision to no longer entertain negativity, doubt, or fear. For what we allow to occupy our minds will one day occupy our lives. Most people live as prisoners of their own thinking. They build invisible walls made of worry and call it safety. They replay old disappointments as if they were watching a film they've seen 1,000 times. Yet the truth is simple. The past cannot chain you. Only your attachment to it can. The moment you change your thoughts about life, life begins to change its thoughts about you. You see, our minds are like rich soil. If we plant weeds, weeds will grow. If we plant flowers, flowers will bloom. The mind does not judge, it simply grows what it's given. That's why it's so essential to become the gardener of your own thoughts. To pull out the weeds of negativity the moment they appear and replace them with seeds of faith, gratitude, and courage. There's a quote worth remembering, one that may guide you for the rest of your life. You become what you think about most of the time. Those 12 words have built empires, healed hearts, and transformed lives. They carry within them the entire secret of success and failure alike. Think little of yourself, and you'll act little. Think abundantly, and you'll attract abundance. Defeating negative thinking isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about seeing clearly, acknowledging what is wrong, yet choosing to focus on what can be made right. It's about training the mind to look for possibilities where others see problems. The disciplined mind doesn't deny challenges. It refuses to be defeated by them. Here are a few steps to begin this transformation. First, watch your self-talk. Every word you say to yourself is a command your subconscious will follow. Replace "I can't" with "I can learn." Replace "It's impossible" with "I'll find a way." Second, control your mental diet. Just as your body reflects what you eat, your mind reflects what you consume through conversations, media, and the company you keep. Feed it inspiration, not cynicism. And third, practice daily gratitude. Even in the smallest blessings, you'll find the strength to overcome the largest burdens. Your thoughts shape your destiny. What you think, you become. The truth is as old as civilization itself, yet few truly grasp its depth. Everything you see around you, every invention, every discovery, every achievement, began as a thought in the quiet workshop of the human mind. The skyscraper once existed only in the imagination of an architect. The symphony was once a whisper in the mind of a composer. The life you now live is a mirror reflection of the thoughts you have most consistently entertained. The human mind is a remarkable instrument, but it is also impartial. It will deliver success or failure, peace or turmoil, depending on the instructions it receives. Like fertile soil, it makes no distinction between the seeds of weeds or the seeds of wheat. It simply returns in kind what you plant within it. When a man allows thoughts of fear, doubt, or limitation to take root, he unknowingly instructs his mind to create a world that matches those beliefs. When he fills his mind with purpose, gratitude, and determination, he sets into motion a series of events that draw him toward success as naturally as gravity pulls a stone to the earth. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances, not realizing that their circumstances are the direct result of their habitual thinking. They wonder why misfortune seems to follow them, never understanding that they have been broadcasting it through their inner dialogue and expectations. The mind is a transmitter and receiver, forever in communication with the world around it. It sends out the vibration of your dominant thought, and life responds in perfect harmony. If you think in terms of progress, you will see progress. If you think in terms of defeat, you will experience defeat. The universe mirrors the image you hold before it, without bias and without hesitation. The great thinkers of every age have taught this same principle in different forms. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. These words are not poetic, they are practical. A person cannot think one way and live another. The merchant who believes he cannot succeed has already closed the door on his own prosperity. The student who doubts his ability has already failed before opening the book. But the one who fills his mind with images of success, who visualizes himself overcoming obstacles, who speaks to himself with faith instead of fear, will inevitably find ways to turn those inner pictures into outer realities. Change begins with awareness. When you observe the pattern of your thoughts, you begin to understand the direction of your life. No one drifts toward excellence, they think their way there. The first victory is always within the mind. By choosing your thoughts with care and persistence, you become the sculptor of your destiny, molding each passing day into a reflection of your highest vision. Negative thinking is the silent thief of opportunity. It steals without sound, without warning, often without resistance. It creeps into the mind dressed as reason, whispering that it is only being realistic. It convinces a man that he is protecting himself from disappointment when in truth, he is building walls against his own potential. Negative thought is subtle. It seldom announces itself with anger or despair. It hides behind caution, behind excuses, behind the quiet belief that things simply cannot change. And yet, every great success, every triumph of the human spirit, begins only when a person refuses to let those thoughts dictate the course of their life. You see, opportunity does not disappear. It is merely invisible to the eyes clouded by negativity. The pessimist walks past it daily, too absorbed in his complaints to notice the open doors around him. The optimist, on the other hand, sees in every challenge a new possibility waiting to be shaped. Two people can look upon the same circumstance, yet one will find reasons to act, while the other finds reasons to quit. The difference lies not in the world they face, but in the world they carry within. Negative thinking is not only destructive, it is contagious. It spreads through conversations, habits, and expectations. Spend enough time in the company of complainers, and their words begin to echo in your mind. You start believing that success belongs only to the fortunate, that the world is unfair, that your best efforts will not matter. Soon, hesitation becomes a habit, and the will to grow begins to wither. But the reverse is also true. Surround yourself with people who believe in progress, who speak of ideas and solutions, and your thinking will rise to meet theirs. The energy of thought is magnetic. It draws to itself that which is like in nature. The tragedy of negative thinking is that it limits not only what we achieve, but also what we attempt. The individual who constantly doubts himself never discovers how capable he truly is. He prepares for defeat long before the challenge even begins. Yet once he learns that thoughts are choices, he regains his power. No one forces him to think poorly of himself or his future. That is a decision he alone makes, and therefore one he alone can change. To defeat negative thinking, one must first recognize its disguise. It often arrives as concern, humility, or practicality. It says, "I'm just being honest," when what it truly means is, "I'm afraid to try." Replace every such thought with one that asks, "What if it works?" And suddenly the horizon shifts. The same problem viewed through the lens of possibility becomes a stepping stone rather than a wall. Each time you silence a negative thought, you reclaim a portion of your potential. Each time you choose belief over doubt, you open another door that was once closed. And in this quiet victory of thought, you begin to see what was always there, an abundance of opportunity waiting patiently for you to believe in it. The mind is a fertile garden. Plant seeds of growth, not weeds of doubt. Within the boundaries of every human mind lies the richest soil known to man, capable of producing wonders beyond measure. Yet, like any garden, it will grow whatever is planted, whether it be flowers of inspiration or thorns of discouragement. The gardener who neglects his plot soon finds it overrun with weeds. So it is with the mind. When left unattended, it fills itself with worry, resentment, and fear. But when tended with care, it blossoms into confidence, purpose, and abundance. Every thought is a seed. When you think with intention, you plant with purpose. A single idea of growth, consistently nurtured, can transform the landscape of your life. But it requires patience and persistence, for no seed becomes a tree overnight. The great minds of history understood this principle well. They knew that the moment one commits to planting only thoughts of progress, the entire universe begins to align in cooperation. Just as the farmer trusts that his seeds will sprout with time and care, a person of faith trusts that the right thoughts will bear fruit in due season. Yet how many people fill their mental gardens with weeds of doubt? They wake each morning watering thoughts of fear, feeding them with complaints, and then wonder why their lives feel tangled in dissatisfaction. A weed needs no encouragement to grow. It thrives in neglect. Doubt, too, thrives in the absence of discipline. When a person allows idle or negative thoughts to run wild, they slowly choke the growth of new possibilities. It is not the storm outside that destroys a man's vision, but the creeping weeds within that suffocate it before it can bloom. To plant seeds of growth, one must begin by choosing what to think about deliberately. Every time you dwell on gratitude, you enrich your soil. Every time you visualize your goal, you water your seed. Every time you speak words of encouragement to yourself or others, you expose your garden to sunlight. These small acts, repeated daily, cultivate a powerful mindset that can withstand any drought or storm. Life will always bring challenges, but a well-tended mind remains fertile even in hard seasons. The gardener of the mind must also know when to pull weeds. Doubt will whisper that you are not ready, fear will insist that failure is certain, and regret will tempt you to stop planting altogether. but pull them out by the root each time they appear. Replace them immediately with thoughts of faith, hope, and perseverance. Over time, the weeds weaken, and the flowers of confidence take their place. The landscape of your mind becomes one of beauty and direction. A man's environment may change, his circumstances may shift, but the one who tends faithfully to his mental garden remains in control of his destiny. The harvest of life is determined not by luck or chance, but by the quality of the seeds sown in the hidden soil of thought. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are their master. The greatest power ever entrusted to man is the ability to think, to choose, to direct his own mind toward whatever end he desires. Yet most people live as though their thoughts were beyond control, as if they were passengers on a train driven by unseen forces. They accept every worry, every fear, every discouraging idea that enters their mind as though it were law. They do not realize that their thinking is not something that happens to them. It is something they do. The moment a person understands this truth, life changes. The chains fall away. For to master one's thoughts is to master one's world. The human mind is a magnificent instrument, but it must be played deliberately. Leave it idle, and it will drift toward confusion, laziness, and fear. Direct it with purpose, and it will build empires, create peace, and open pathways where none seem to exist. The mind is not your enemy, it is your servant. But like any servant, it requires training and discipline. Without guidance, it follows old patterns, old doubts, and the voices of limitation learned long ago. To reclaim authority over your thoughts, you must remind yourself daily that you are in command. No idea, no opinion, no passing mood holds power over you unless you grant it permission. Every great achievement begins in this moment of recognition. The inventor, the leader, the artist, all start by mastering the quiet workshop of their inner world. They guard it like a fortress, refusing entry to any thought that weakens their spirit. They understand that the mind believes whatever it is told most often. Speak to it of your potential, and it will find ways to prove you right. Speak to it of your failure, and it will find evidence to confirm it. You are the author of the story your mind tells itself each day, and that story determines the direction of your life. There is no virtue in surrendering to negative thought. It serves no purpose to dwell on what is broken or lost. The individual who chooses to take responsibility for his thinking becomes immune to the storms that defeat others. The winds may blow, the tides may shift, but he remains anchored within, calm and deliberate. He knows that he cannot always control events, but he can always control his interpretation of them. And in that control lies freedom. The freedom to respond with wisdom instead of fear, with creativity instead of complaint. Each morning you are given a blank page in the book of your mind. You may fill it with worry, or you may fill it with vision. You may write of problems, or you may write of solutions. The pen is always in your hand. To be the master of your thoughts is not a talent, but a practice, one refined by awareness and choice. For the moment you decide what to think, you begin to decide who you will become. Change begins the moment you decide to think differently. Every transformation in human history, every revolution of progress, every personal awakening began not with an action, but with a thought, a single spark of realization that the old way no longer serves and that a new way must begin. The mind is the birthplace of change. Until a person alters his thinking, nothing around him can truly shift. He may change his surroundings, his work, even his relationships, but if his thoughts remain the same, life will eventually take the same shape again. True change does not happen to us, it happens through us. It begins when we take command of the one thing always within our control, the direction of our thoughts. The difference between a stagnant life and a growing one is not opportunity but perspective. When you change your thoughts, you do not merely alter your outlook, you alter your world. What was once seen as an obstacle becomes a lesson. What once felt like limitation transforms into challenge. The act of thinking differently releases a new kind of energy, one that attracts ideas, people, and circumstances aligned with your new vision. Life begins to respond to your new mental vibration as faithfully as an echo returns a call. Many wait for circumstances to improve before they choose new thoughts. They say, when things get better, I'll think positively. Yet the truth is reversed. Things get better only when you think positively. The world mirrors what you hold in your mind. The person who believes he cannot change is always right, and the one who believes he can is also right. The difference between the two is simply the point where thought begins to move in a new direction. Thinking differently is an act of courage, for it requires leaving behind the familiar. The mind resists change the way the body resists discomfort. Old patterns of thought whisper, stay where it's safe. But the mind that dares to think in you discovers that safety is an illusion, and growth is the only real security. Each time you replace an old belief with a new one, you expand the boundaries of what is possible. Each time you challenge a limiting thought, you strengthen your capacity for progress. To change your thinking is to declare independence from the past. It is to say, I will no longer be guided by what was, but by what can be. This decision is the quiet turning point in every life that rises above mediocrity. You may not see immediate results, but the shift begins the moment the decision is made. The seeds of new thoughts start to grow beneath the surface long before they appear above the ground. And once they do, the world around you cannot remain the same, for it must now conform to the new image you hold in your mind. What you consistently dwell upon will eventually define your life. The thoughts that occupy your mind most often are not fleeting. They are forming the blueprint of your future. Each idea you repeat, each picture you hold before your inner eye, is quietly shaping your character, your habits, and your destiny. The mind is always at work whether you direct it or not. It listens to your dominant thoughts and begins to construct a world to match them. A person who constantly worries begins to live in circumstances that justify worry. One who fills his mind with hope finds that opportunity seems to appear where once there was only doubt. The outer world becomes a reflection of the inner world, for thought is the architect of circumstance. You cannot think one way and live another. The man who dwells on failure invites more of it, while the one who contemplates success opens himself to its arrival. Life follows thought with astonishing precision. It does not respond to your wishes, your luck, or even your talent. It responds to the direction of your thinking. That is why some live in continual struggle and others in growing fulfillment. Both are experiencing the natural harvest of what they have planted in the soil of their mind. To dwell upon something is to give it energy. The more attention you give to an idea, the stronger it becomes and the more it begins to influence your emotions, your decisions, and your behavior. A thought entertained long enough becomes a belief. A belief acted upon long enough becomes a reality. Most people unknowingly give their best energy to what they fear most. They rehearse failure in their imagination and then wonder why it finds them so easily. The disciplined thinker, however, chooses carefully what to entertain. He holds in his mind only those pictures that are worthy of his future. He knows that his life will grow in the direction of his most persistent mental images. This principle works in every field of life. The athlete who visualizes victory long before the competition begins builds within himself the confidence and readiness to achieve it. The entrepreneur who constantly imagines growth begins to see opportunities others overlook. Even the individual facing hardship can transform his experience by dwelling not on the pain, but on the lessons and strength it brings. The mind, like a compass, always points toward what it contemplates most. The secret lies in conscious repetition. Begin and end each day with thoughts of purpose, gratitude, and achievement. Write your goals, read them aloud, picture them vividly. Allow no room for doubt to take root. For the thoughts you dwell upon, you invite into your home. They become your silent companions, influencing every word you speak and every path you take. And in time, as surely as night follows day, your life will bear the unmistakable resemblance of the thoughts that built it. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. It is the quiet alchemy of the mind, the simple transformation that changes the ordinary into the extraordinary. Gratitude does not demand that life be perfect, it merely recognizes the perfection that already exists within each moment. The ungrateful person looks at life and sees lack. What is missing? What is unfair? What should have been? The grateful person looks at the same life and sees abundance. The lessons, the opportunities, the unseen blessings that reveal themselves only to the one who is willing to notice. Gratitude is not the denial of difficulty, it is the decision to focus on value. It does not remove challenges, but it gives you the strength to rise above them with dignity and calm assurance. Most people spend their lives chasing after what they believe will finally make them content, only to discover that contentment was available all along. They measure their success by accumulation instead of appreciation. Yet, the man who cannot be grateful for what he has will never be satisfied with what he gains. Gratitude opens the door to a wealth that cannot be counted, a wealth of peace, clarity, and inner power. When you begin to appreciate the simplest things, the breath in your lungs, the sunrise, the ability to think, to learn, to choose, you step into a different frequency of life altogether. The world seems kinder, opportunities appear where none existed, and life begins to respond with greater generosity. Gratitude is also the great purifier of thought. It cleans the mind of resentment, envy, and fear. It reminds you that life has given you much already and that what you focus on expands. To dwell on what is missing is to multiply absence. To dwell on what is good is to multiply abundance. A grateful mind cannot simultaneously entertain bitterness. It is impossible to hold both appreciation and resentment in the same thought. The moment gratitude enters, negativity quietly withdraws. Gratitude also sharpens perception. When you make it a daily habit to notice the good, you begin to see how much good there truly is. The person who counts blessings is never poor. He may not have all that he wants, but he always has more than enough to move forward with confidence. From that foundation of gratitude, ambition grows in its healthiest form, not from desperation or greed, but from a desire to express more of what one is capable of. Begin today by acknowledging the value already present in your life. Write it down, speak it aloud, or simply think it quietly before sleep. Gratitude requires no audience and no reward. It rewards by its very presence. The mind that is grateful becomes powerful, for it no longer wastes energy on what cannot be changed. It is directed toward possibility, anchored in peace, and aligned with the truth that what we appreciate inevitably multiplies. Every challenge carries within it the seed of equal or greater benefit. This is one of life's most remarkable laws, invisible to those who complain, yet perfectly clear to those who understand that growth is born from adversity. No man has ever risen to greatness without facing obstacles, for challenges are not punishments, they are opportunities in disguise. When something difficult enters your life, it arrives with a purpose: to strengthen you, to refine your character, to reveal abilities you did not know you possessed. Life has a curious way of hiding its gifts inside of its problems, and it takes a disciplined mind to look beyond the discomfort and see the lesson. The difference between the successful and the defeated is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of a different attitude toward it. The unsuccessful man meets difficulty and retreats. He curses his fate and wonders why fortune has abandoned him. The successful man looks at the same event and asks, "What can I learn from this? What is this trying to teach me?" His perspective transforms the experience from a burden into a teacher. What others see as failure, he sees as feedback. What others call loss, he calls education. Every mountain climbed builds endurance for the next. Every setback strengthens the muscles of persistence. If we were handed everything easily, we would never grow. The very resistance we resist is the force that shapes our potential into power. It is only under pressure that coal becomes diamond, and it is only through challenge that the spirit becomes unbreakable. The greater the obstacle, the greater the possibility hidden within it. When you meet difficulties with courage and curiosity, you unlock a new dimension of strength. You begin to realize that life is not happening to you, but for you. The world responds not to your complaints, but to your capacity to adapt. In every difficulty, there lies a choice to shrink or to expand, to give up or to rise higher. The individual who chooses to see the benefit within the challenge transforms his pain into wisdom, his fear into faith, and his struggle into stepping stones toward something greater. Surround yourself with people and ideas that lift you higher. No man becomes great in isolation, for the environment you choose will either nourish your growth or quietly destroy it. The thoughts, habits, and attitudes of those around you inevitably shape your own. You become like the company you keep, for the human mind is remarkably impressionable. Spend enough time with those who complain, and you will begin to see the world as something to endure rather than embrace. But walk among those who speak of possibilities, who carry within them the spirit of progress, and your own thoughts will rise to meet theirs. The company you keep is the mirror of the future you are building. The world is filled with both light and darkness, encouragement and discouragement. The wise man deliberately seeks out those whose minds are tuned to growth. He reads the words of great thinkers, listens to voices that challenge him to think better, and associates with individuals who inspire him to act with purpose. He understands that influence works silently, like gravity, pulling him toward whatever he surrounds himself with most often. If he fills his life with mediocrity, mediocrity becomes his standard. If he fills it with excellence, excellence becomes his expectation. Your environment extends beyond people. It includes the books you read, the music you listen to, the conversations you entertain. Each carries energy that either drains or renews you. Every word, every idea, is a seed being planted in your mind. If you wish to grow strong, surround yourself with strong minds. If you wish to become wise, listen to those who speak from experience rather than opinion. The quality of your influences determines the quality of your destiny. When you walk with visionaries, you begin to think in terms of vision. When you spend time with those who live by principle, you start to act with integrity. And when you choose to learn from those who are already walking the path you wish to travel, you shorten the distance between where you are and where you could be. The people and ideas you keep close are shaping you this very moment, quietly molding the person you are becoming and the life you are preparing to live. A positive mindset is not naive. It's disciplined optimism in action. It is the conscious choice to see possibility where others see limitation, to believe in progress when circumstances appear unyielding. True optimism is not blind, it is the clear-eyed courage to hold faith in the face of uncertainty. The weak call it denial, but the wise know it as power. For no great thing was ever achieved by the man who doubted his own strength or the potential of his future. The optimist looks at the same facts as the pessimist, yet he chooses a different conclusion. Where one sees an ending, the other sees a beginning. Where one feels defeat, the other finds direction. A positive mindset is the discipline of the mind to dwell upon what can be done instead of what cannot. It is not born of luck or circumstance, but of daily decision. The individual who practices it knows that negativity is easy, that pessimism requires no effort at all. But growth demands energy and progress requires will. Each day, he trains his mind as an athlete trains his body, refusing to indulge in complaints, refusing to surrender to fear. He replaces every discouraging thought with one of potential, every doubt with determination, every worry with constructive action. This discipline becomes a habit, and that habit becomes strength. Over time, the person who chooses positivity begins to attract outcomes that match his attitude. Life, after all, reflects the state of the mind that perceives it. The one who expects good tends to find it, not by chance, but because his attention is fixed on opportunity rather than obstacle. When you look for reasons to hope, you notice possibilities that others overlook. When you decide that each event can serve your growth, even adversity becomes an ally. A disciplined optimist does not pretend that pain does not exist. He simply refuses to let it dictate his direction. He acknowledges difficulty, but he keeps his eyes on the lesson within it. He knows that his thoughts shape his response, and his response shapes his future. A positive mindset, then, is not about avoiding reality. It is about mastering it, using thought as the architect of better outcomes and faith as the builder of an unshakable inner foundation. Change your mindset, and you change your life. Every thought you hold, every belief you entertain, every idea you choose to nurture becomes a silent architect, shaping the reality you live in. The mind is the starting point of every success and the source of every failure. The difference lies in awareness, the understanding that you are not a bystander in your own thinking, but the deliberate creator of it. The power has always been in your hands, quietly waiting for you to use it with purpose. Negative thinking is the quiet destroyer of potential, while gratitude, optimism, and disciplined thought are its builders. Life responds faithfully to the vibration of your dominant mindset. When you dwell on fear, you attract limitation. When you dwell on faith, you invite progress. To think rightly is to live rightly, for your inner world and your outer world are forever connected. The journey toward transformation begins in the mind's garden. Plant seeds of growth. Uproot weeds of doubt. Choose carefully the company you keep, for every influence is a form of nourishment. Surround yourself with those who remind you of who you can become, not who you once were. Let gratitude be your daily companion, optimism your steady compass, and perseverance your unshakable ground. The world will not change simply because you hope it will. It will change because you do. The key lies within your own thoughts, invisible yet infinitely powerful. Direct them toward the life you desire, and watch as the outer world rearranges itself to match the vision you hold. The mind is both the seed and the soil, and your future is its harvest. Guard it well, feed it wisely, and it will yield a life of richness beyond measure. For the greatest transformation you can ever make is not in what you possess, but in how you think.